How many hours have you spent in classrooms in your life? A lot, yeah. Here in Michigan, the average student spends around 15,000 hours in school, much of that time in classrooms. Now, if you add college or graduate school, it's even more. During the pandemic, something extraordinary happened. Many of us missed our physical classrooms, right? Yeah? At the same time, many of us found out that there are many alternatives and that we have digital and virtual and hybrid spaces. So if we go through the motions and maybe putting on a belt and shoes and going through the rain to an actual physical classroom, shouldn't we design the best possible classrooms that we actually want to spend time in? I'm Felix Kronenberg, and I'm an associate professor and center director here at Michigan State University. And over the past 20 years, I've been searching for better classrooms. And I'll take you here on a journey and show you what I've learned. So about 10 years ago, I did consulting for a small liberal arts college, and as we walked through the corridor of a classroom building, I noticed the sign posted to one of the classroom doors. And it asked the faculty, and probably the students too, to put everything back in classroom style. Now, what is classroom style? I don't have to tell any of you because you already know. Please close your eyes and picture this space. There are around 30 chairs and desks, all the same, usually in rows, sometimes in a square, sometimes in a circle, maybe in a horseshoe, but usually in rows. On the one side, we have windows of the classroom. On the other side, one or two doors that lead out into a hallway. There's a front of the room, and that's where the teacher is. The teacher has a chair and desk that differ from those of the students. Behind the teacher is a writing space and nowadays usually a screen. Before a child sets foot into a physical classroom, they already know what it looks like. From books, from toys, from video games, from movies, from popular media. And we might expect such rigid, normalized classroom spaces, let's say in Harry Potter, but if we look at science fiction films where theoretically we could be dreaming up completely new spaces, we find the same pattern over and over again. In the Jetsons, in Star Trek, in Star Wars and the Mandalorian, and Black Mirror, and even when those spaces are outside, which theoretically, we don't have to build a classroom outside. There's so many possibilities. We find the same pattern yet again. And this is not just in science fiction. This is here. And these pictures are from different continents. So how did we get here? How did we get here? Our classrooms have, in fact, become normalized. They are so normal, we don't even see them anymore. We don't question them. When I do workshops with faculty and students and ask them, draw me a classroom, usually something like this comes up. It's very hard for us to unthink because from the moment we could look at pictures, we've kind of known what a classroom is supposed to look like. And even when we try to maybe do things differently, nowadays with mobile furniture, we see something like this. We could be moving all these chairs around, but we often don't. So in this day and age, we have artificial intelligence, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to ask one of these engines to come up with a classroom design, and you can already guess what it comes up with. It only knows what we know, and so these are the designs it comes up with. And if you look for stock images, or you go to Wikipedia, you find all of these same kind of images again and again. I had one of my light bulb moments when I was teaching in this classroom. And this was supposed to be a smart classroom because there was a smart board in there. It was a dumb classroom because this middle row in there, you see those tables in the middle, they have absolutely no purpose or reason to be in there. Those tables are very hard to move. And so people don't move those tables. And I was standing back there by the smart board, and sometimes I had to write something on the board. And so I had to awkwardly squeeze by the students there where the red dot is, over here, write something, and then I had to squeeze back, which for me was very awkward, and for the students there, extremely awkward. So over time, I was writing less often on that board. The physical space had a real impact on how I was teaching my classes. And at the same time, physical spaces have a real impact on how we learn. When we feel that we belong and that we are safe, we learn better. If we have a sense of well-being and agency and are able to move things around and customize and change, we learn better. In my field, we usually don't talk about classrooms. We use the term learning spaces. And we can learn everywhere. We're learning here today in this auditorium all together, right? And some of these spaces we don't even think about. Say corridors. The student there on the top left in that picture, he's learning. He's on his laptop, and I'm sure many of you have been in that position. It's not a great way to learn in that hallway. It's sociofugal. It makes you want to leave. Now, what if we think around other categories and combine, for example, let's say a classroom and a corridor? We come up with something that's called an active corridor. It defies categorization. It makes us rethink what's possible. It's a hybrid. Whenever I do a campus visit, and I go to many classrooms and campuses, and I always take photos. I don't know if you do, but I have thousands of photos of classrooms. You look at the little stuff, and I ask the students on campus to give me a personal tour and say, show me your most favorite and your least favorite learning space. And interestingly enough, they never show me a classroom. At this one college, the students first took me to this campus center. It was a multi-million-dollar brand new building. Everything was designed by designers down to the movie posters. And it looked like this. And it was their least favorite learning space. Then they took me to their most favorite learning space. And it was this co-op cafe, and it was quite different. They had designed it themselves. They were serving coffee there. The movie posters were actually put up with blue tape on the wall. They used upcycled furniture. And it was full of life. Now, what's the difference between the campus center and the cafe? The campus center is a space. The cafe is a place. It has meaning, and the people in it belong. And they were active in designing it themselves. Who is in control of our classrooms? Nobody really. I'm not in charge of my classroom as a professor here. The students aren't. And so what happens sometimes is this little story where I was teaching in a classroom and a bunch of stuff accumulated on the side here. And so I started taking a photo every day, and it was a game of spot the difference. Items started to appear and disappear. This space didn't belong to anyone. So I've been looking actually for learning places over time. And when people get involved that actually use them, then magic happens. At the University of Hanover, in Germany, my colleague Klaus Schwienhorst invited students and faculty and staff to test stuff out before they moved into a permanent building. And if you look at these pictures, I just took them a few weeks ago, they look nothing like those classroom-style images I showed you before. A space that I oversaw for 8 years started out just like most of the other rooms in rows. But then when we asked students and faculty, and yes, the people who clean our rooms and who maintain the technology for their input, then ideas came up that I personally could never have envisioned. And here are 3 images that are my favorite from that space. On the left, you see a Spanish class that created their own makerspace and created books out of recycled materials that they read to students and kids in the community in Spanish, and then exhibited their books in this space. At the top right, my colleague taught a yoga class, and this was extracurricular. It was full. It was well received in German. And then as computers started to disappear from our learning spaces in this age of mobile computing and cloud computing, it freed up the whole space, and it looked different every single time. So what can we learn from this? When we design together, and if we include everyone in the design, not just an architect, not just an administrator, but those of us who are actually in this room every single day, teaching or learning or cleaning or maintaining. If we ask all of those people for their input and make sure that diverse sets of people are included, then really extraordinary things can happen. And I remember still some very otherwise serious professors, well established, giggling with delight as they suggested tiki bars and waterfalls and ball pits for their classrooms. And while that might not be exactly something we should be or could be putting in all our classrooms, it shows us that there's a real desire to create places that we want to spend time in, that we choose to spend time in, that have meaning to us. And so the next time all of you go into a classroom, I want you to look around and actually notice it. I don't know how many of you do this, but usually these are invisible to us. So as you go in there, think about it. And then hopefully in the future, you can come together and contribute to completely unthinking our classrooms and our learning spaces. Because after all of you are the experts. Thank you.